Space Marines, as we have known them, are over. Search your feelings, you know this to be true. The classic Mark VII Space Marine is coming to an end. Space Marines are changing. Luckily, wargamers are a bunch who are very receptive to change.
Space Marines are taller now.
Yeah, I can be mad about that. Hey guys, Jay here, welcome to Eons of Battle. I like Space Marines, they were my second Warhammer army. My first was my Necrons. My Necrons. And just like everybody's first army, they were painted, but I wanted better. Not to repaint my Necrons, as I like the paint just enough not to start over, so I want to do better on something new, and that was Space Marines. And they were painted better. I learned a lot. I watched every Bai painted video 10 times over, and even though I could not replicate what he did, I got better for trying. And I'm now kind of in a similar boat with my Primaris Marines. They look so much better than my OG Marines, but I still like my OG Marines, just enough not to want to repaint them. And speaking of Space Marines, I got a box in the mail. Inside this package is, in my opinion, the last great metal Space Marines. So let's take a look inside. Just kidding, I already opened it. These bad boys came to me from eBay painted, but a little acetone bath quickly fixed that up. With the paint stripped off, these shiny boys are ready to get based. I did my patented trick of clipping the slotted base peg in such a way to create some pins that I can use to give these models some extra security on their new bases. And for those bases, I'm going to be using some Milliput as my elevation. They need it, these guys are tiny. I mixed together the 2 parts of epoxy and squished them down onto the bases, making them random and uneven. Then I stuck down my Marines with plenty of superglue, and I prepared to attach my bits. Scrap metal piles, concrete piles, and debris from a company called Epic Basing. I stuck these down to the soft Milliput with superglue, and I was able to sculpt the Milliput around these bits to make them look more natural. I put as many as I could fit onto each base. Then I filled in all the in-between spots with some wood glue, then sprinkled on some small pebbles and fine grained sand. These are Stern Guard veterans from Warhammer 40k's 5th edition, the Matt Ward period of Space Marines. And these are such wonderful characterful sculpts, really standing out from the standard tactical Marines of the time that personified the OG Marine. Bolter a little down, bolter a little bit up, bolter a little to the left, bolter a little to the right, missile launcher. It's stuff like this that gave this era of Space Marines a million nicknames. Plain Jane Space Marines, Original Space Marines, Squatty Space Marines, Old School Space Marines, Little Lovable Space Marines, I can't believe it's not Space Marines, Baby Boy Space Marines, Vanilla Space Marines Classic, Coffee Space Marines. Wait, Coffee Space Marines? This video is sponsored by Coffee, Many Worlds Tavern to be specific. Many Worlds Tavern is an online coffee company. They make great coffee with beautiful branding aimed squarely at us gamers. It has a magical otherworldly aesthetic and a great taste. I really like Great Old Ones. It's a long, dark roast that really wakes me up in the morning so I can spend all day painting. And Electric Sheep is a delicious decaf to mellow me out while I continue to paint long into the night. This is Coffee for Game Night, made by nerdy gamers for nerdy gamers, and they give back $1 of every bag of coffee sold to support gaming-related nonprofits. This is truly geek coffee with names like Dragon's Nest, Homely House, and Treasured Realm. This is a single origin coffee and is limited to 400 available, and it comes with a set of dice and a D&D 5th edition compatible magic item, the Staff of Vitality. The first 100 viewers to use the code EOB10 at checkout will receive 10% off their cart from Many Worlds Tavern. But these metal Marines are cool, and I'm glad I have them. However, I am not going to paint them up for my Black Templar army. It just doesn't feel right. I want to really experience these models from the time period they were from, so they came to me as Ultramarines, and Ultramarines they shall be. I took these boys, threw them up on paint handles, and primed them black. So, a classic Ultramarines color scheme. What is my base coat going to be? You might think it's going to be Ultramarines blue, but you'd be wrong. It's actually going to be red. I sprayed my blue boys with the red base coat, letting it get all over the bases too. The red gave them a really nice Blood Angels look, but that is not what I'm going for here. I now gave the models a white zenithal, letting a lot of the red show through. This is my, I can't believe it's not Blood Angels, Ultramarine color scheme. So I now have some red Ultramarines, and why would I have red Ultramarines? Well, let me try to explain myself right now. The classic way to paint an Ultramarine, or any Space Marine for that matter, is to break it down into sections, and paint those sections a color. Blue for the armor, gray for the undersuit, yellow for the decorations, white for the helmets, and then maybe, if you feel frisky, you can go in and add some highlights. But the bulk of the work is done. but that's not very interesting. What I want to do on these guys is use some color theory. Blue and red makes purple, and that'll give me some more interesting shadows. I want to throw the paint around, not be confined to cells, but to get a painterly modeled base where colors overlap and complement each other. It might take a little longer, but it'll be a way more enjoyable experience compared to the paint by number style of Space Marines, and it'll give me a way better final product. Let's see if it works. I made myself up a transparent blue glaze and then sprayed this onto my minis. Now they are blue with some purple and subtle red hints. I put some orange into my airbrush and sprayed this onto the details on the base. And now in just a few steps, my Space Marines were looking like something. It's looking good, but it's a little bit subtle. And subtle is okay for the display shelf, but it's not great for gaming. But that's okay, because painting is an additive process. It's very hard to ruin a paint job because you can always just add more paints. And the paint I'm gonna be adding to try to bring it up a little bit more is a little bit of transparent red ink. I squirted the ink here and there to accentuate the red base coat. I think this looks far more interesting than just dark blue, blue, light blue. Then I sprayed their heads and guns with some white paint. If I get a little spillage, that's okay, I can clean it up later. Only an hour in and my Marines were looking practically done. I degloved and prepared for painting. I threw some blending medium into my palette and some light blue paint, and then I began to paint these models in a very uncharacteristic way. I used small brushstrokes and stippling, putting the paint where it needed to be, but not worrying about being perfect or doing nice blends. My mind told me to do perfect 2-brush blends, but I wanted to emulate some of the frenetic, interesting paint jobs I see from artists like Collective SG and Dana Howell, where it's more about color choice and highlights and less about smoothness. It just looks like a more fun way to paint, and I want to add as much fun to painting as possible. Even though my paint was less than perfect, the overall impression was really, really good. I don't think I lost anything. Once my highlights were on, I made a very thinned down blue wash, and I applied this all over the Marines. Then I took some red, brown, and khaki colors and used this on all the purity seals and gold bits. With these parts base coated, it was time for a little highlight, and that highlight will be gold. I don't have to be too precise, just touching it here and there and letting the brown underneath show through. And then there's the weapons. They might look just kinda gray now, but with just a few swipes of silver paint on a dry brush and they transform into cold hard steel. And you know what else is cold hard steel? That's right, our Patreon. We are starting a Miniature of the Month club. This month you can get these squid mages. We also have high quality terrain STLs hosted by Comics, Games, and Things, viewer model critique videos, a weekly hobby hangout live stream, and more. It's the best way to support us, so head on over to Patreon to get access to even more Eons of Battle. We also have merch, link in the description. I'm having a lot of fun painting these Space Marines, and that's kind of what I was counting on, switching up my painting style for Space Marines, because often Space Marines can feel very paint by numbers, the shoulder pads white, body blue, head white with a stripe. It doesn't lend itself to very much fun painting, but switching it up and treating these like I would any other mini, just adding value and contrast here and there, not being super precise with my colors, it makes them kind of just a fun paint job. And I actually kind of want to paint a lot more Space Marines like this, which is definitely saying something because I am a little burnt out on Space Marines after painting 10,000 points of Black Templar Space Marines. I wonder what color I'm going to undercoat black armor. Maybe magenta? For the eyes, I started by painting a line of white in the middle of each lens, making sure that there was still a dark outline. Then I mixed a very watery brush load of red and splashed this around the eyes. It's super subtle now, but once I've layered on 3 or 4 coats, one on top of another, it should make for some very aggressive looking glow. And lastly, I reapplied my white stripe, going a little smaller this time. These guys are cool. Basing time. I dry brushed some yellow to bring out the details of the bricks and debris, and then I smushed on some yellow pigment powder. I really like pigment powder because it helps with scale. It gives the look of incredibly fine sand and dirt, and it's a nice easy step, a lot like a wash paint. I get asked a lot, how does the pigment powder stay attached? What keeps it on? And if I put anything on top of it to keep the pigment powder stuck down, but really, it sticks on by itself. It's a lot like makeup. Makeup doesn't just fall off, you need to wipe it off. So as long as you don't run your minis under the sink, the pigment powders should stick on just fine. They stay attached to all the tiny little micro scratches and nooks and crannies on the base. With my minis done, the only thing left to do was to paint the rim of the base brown. I think these are the best Space Marines I have ever painted. They are so cool, but before I show them off, let me explain why I'm okay with models like these being replaced by Primaris Space Marines. Remember earlier when I talked about always taking on new projects when my skills improved? Well, that is why Primaris didn't hurt me when they came out. In fact, I think they're great. And I'm not talking about Primaris lore, it's good. And if your only experience with Primaris lore is what someone told you, read these and get back to me. I have my old Space Marines. They're part of my hobby history and still completely playable on the tabletop, but now I get to try again. And my new Primaris models rock compared to my old Marines. My troop choice has had a total glow up. My new banner guy is night and day compared to the old one. And my new Flying Marines are some of my favorite models I own. That's kind of the nature of this hobby, to always be expanding the collection. How many of you, show of hands, finish your army and are done, no more kits, no more painting, you just play those models again and again forever? No one, right? Primaris is just an opportunity to try again, to try new things, new techniques that I didn't know about 5 years ago. And again, I have my old models and I'll continue to play with them, but I'll also continue to expand the Crusade. And speaking of expanding the Crusade, let's take a look at these blueberries. These are what arrived at my door a week ago. Not bad, but look at them now. Ultramarines are kinda cool when you try really hard to paint them. And it was really fun painting Space Marines in a new way, really focusing on highlights and not being stuck in the heavy metal paint by number style of Space Marines. These models will sit on the shelf, a reminder of where my painting is in 2022. And I wonder what my Space Marines will look like 5 years from now. I love these guys. I might just have to pick up another squad for my Black Templar. Maybe make it a 10-man squad and mix these metal dudes in with the modern plastics. They just look so cool and are a fun little piece of Space Marine history. Thanks for watching.